And our friends that were running knew that we would be there waiting to cheer them down to the finish line. So we left in the 7th inning. It took about an hour to get around all those street barricades to Boylston Street and to where we were supposed to meet at Forum Restaurant. We got there, we went in, we did a quick walk around. We checked to see if any of our other friends were there. You knew that if you had friends or acquaintances that you hadn't seen in a year since last Marathon Monday, you knew that they would be there this Marathon Monday. So this is where the crowd that we would see every year at this one location. We went in, did that walk around, and we got another automated alert update probably about 20 minutes later that Jen now was making her way from Kenmore Square. Jen's a pretty quick runner. So we knew we'd have to step outside pretty quickly to be in a spot in case she came by, and we definitely didn't want to miss her. So we stepped out to that barricade that separates the runners from the spectators. And initially, I had started on this side of the mailbox. That's my friend Sabrina right there, who I'd gone to the Red Sox game with. But I consider myself vertically challenged. I could not see over this mailbox. Yeah. So I separated myself and moved over to this opposite side. Shortly thereafter, our friend Megan showed up. She came over, said hi to me, and asked this gentleman here if she could squeeze in between us so we could see Jen coming down Boylston Street together. He simply replied, "No, I'm sorry, I'm waiting for my wife." With a shrug of her shoulders, we said hi, and she went back to the other side. At this point in time, little did I realize what role that mailbox would play in saving my friends' lives. Little did I realize that for the first time in Boston Marathon history, the entire race would be shut down. They didn't even shut it down the year before when it was record hot temperatures at like 95, 96 degrees. They still allowed people to run if they wanted to, even though it was a very bad health hazard. Little did I realize how familiar I would become with that white hat. And lastly, I had no idea how profoundly my world was about to change. Within a minute or two of Megan going back to the opposite side of that mailbox, the first explosion happened down to our left. It was a loud, loud boom, and the whole entire crowd went silent. Has anybody in here ever been to the Boston Marathon and been on Boylston Street, either towards the finish line or in that area? So you know the sound of that crowd, it can be deafening at times with cowbells and people cheering. At this point, you could actually hear a pin drop. And even though 10 seconds to 12 seconds is not a long time, your brain can process a lot of information in that time frame. Seeing that I've been there before, I knew that it wasn't celebratory cannons going off. I knew all the elite runners had been in hours ago. Why would they have these celebratory cannons going off for just regular runners? Someone yelled, "It's a manhole cover," and then another gentleman to my right yelled, "Quick, get in the street." Doing that vertically challenged assessment again, I knew I was not going to make it over that barricade. I would probably get trampled with it falling over. I didn't want to have a bad Marathon Monday, maybe breaking a wrist or skinning a knee. I decided within a matter of seconds to turn to my right and take 2 steps and run. And when I did, I saw 2 flashes of white light. And then everything went completely blank. It's in those moments of coming to, sitting there on the sidewalk, those are the reasons why I'm here speaking with you today. There are certain things that I learned in those moments or came back to me in those moments. One of the things that came back to me from the house that I lived in Drake-It, and one of those life lessons that I learned, was never panic in case of an emergency. Even though I knew there was chaos all over and running past me, I knew that I had that choice to make, to decide of whether or not to react to it, become upset and cry, or to breathe through the pain and try to remain as calm as possible so that I could get myself help. I made the choice to not let the emotions take over me. Now, another small little lesson that I learned living in Drake-It was that my mother always said growing up, crying makes you ugly. Now, in her defense, she would also follow it up with swollen eyes and you'd get a headache, but as a kid, you only hear it's gonna make you look ugly. And I figured when I was sitting on that sidewalk at that point, I didn't need to look any worse than I probably already did. So I made those choices. It is something that went through my head, and I was able to control certain things. One of those things I was able to control was my consciousness. I knew I needed to stay conscious as long as I possibly could. And as I was laying there on Boylston Street, I had a lot of help that came to help me, to assist me. But I have 3 individuals that I really consider my personal heroes. You have Shores, the college student at the time. He happened to be across the street from the explosion. When he heard the first one, he stopped. He was with a buddy of his. They thought about it, and they continued on. But when that second one went off, he stopped, and he ran in to help me. He scooped me up off the sidewalk and carried me to the middle of the street where you had seen in that last picture. 2 other gentlemen helped him apply a tourniquet on my right leg, at which time Shayna, the Boston police officer, came upon us and decided she was going to help. These are all choices that these people made. They could have kept going. They could have gotten the heck out of there. But they stopped to help. She made sure I was calm. She made sure that my family was notified of my injury. She also helped get transportation for me. Now, as they're getting me ready, they put me on a backboard. There's a bunch of firemen there that get me on a backboard. They straighten my leg out, which was the most excruciating pain in the whole entire world. Thank God our brains are programmed to forget such things. But I can still tell you it was awful. But they got me ready on this board to be transported. And as soon as they were getting me ready to be lifted up, firefighter Mike Materia shows up. Now, I'm laying there. Both eardrums have been blown out, but I can still hear some conversation very close to me. The conversation that was going around me was transportation on how to get me to the hospital. I could hear ambulance sirens coming and going, but I did not go to the hospital in one of these. I went to the hospital in one of these. Now I'm going to be a little bit politically incorrect. In Boston, we call that a paddy wagon. Now, I swear to my parents that this is the only time I've ever been in a paddy wagon, which is true. Police car is a whole nother story for another day. Now, I'd like to ask, but I won't ask the crowd, but I usually, depending on where I'm speaking, I ask if anybody else has been in a paddy wagon in the room. Kathy? No. So I will describe a bit to you. There are 2 metal benches on either side. There's no seat belts. There's no way to restrain or hold someone on these metal benches. So you can imagine when I'm loaded in, laying down on a backboard, that if I wasn't assisted, I would have been sliding all over the place and probably would have landed face down on the floor. The other thing is there's no windows and there's no ventilation. My understanding is it didn't smell really good back there. I blame it on the people that they've had in there in the past, not myself and another survivor. The other thing is when they shut the doors, it's completely pitch black in there. There's no windows or any sort of lighting in there. Now, as we're going around, they close the doors and we're heading off, firefighter Mike Materia and another firefighter and another survivor on the other bench, the 2 firefighters are kneeling down, legs locked together. Poor Mike is trying to keep me balanced on the backboard, keep himself balanced as the paddy wagon's taking certain lefts, rights, and all these different turns. He's also having to hold the tourniquet that's on my leg. And you know what I think is a good idea? I bang his chest because I want him now to hold my hand. Poor guy did not know what to do. But we made it. We made it to the hospital. They had done their job of keeping me alive to the hospital. I did my job by staying conscious and keeping myself alive. Now, it was going to be up to the doctors and the nurses to hopefully be able to do the same. Here I am, 2 days later, 3 amputations later. I have this picture in here not because I think I look very good, but because I'm smiling. And my sister's smiling. We're both in there with a smile on our face. I'm sure some of the medication helped me with the smile. But, you know, my first words coming out of sedation were, "It is what it is." It was a choice that I made at that moment that I knew my leg was never going to go back. It would never come back. So I was going to have to deal with this adversity. I knew that I was going to have to make that choice one way or the other. I had the choice to stay in bed and not do anything, or had the choice to get up and start physical therapy as they were urging me to do right from the beginning. Now, all of this decision making didn't all come on my own. I had a lot of support from a lot of many, many different people. Not only did I have nurses and doctors and therapists all supporting me, I had family and friends who showed up by the carfuls of coming through and visiting. If anybody gets to ever meet my mother, you'll know she's a force to be reckoned with. And she told the ICU doctors that anybody and everybody that shows up here will go through that room, as they did. But the other support we had was a bunch of unlikely people. President Obama came in. Now, like him or hate him, whatever your politics are, I don't get into that. But what I can tell you is that he had amazing skin. His complexion was, he bent down and was talking with me, and I don't even know what we said. All I know is I could not get over how nice skin he had. I remember that, and then I remember my mother chirping in his ear that we all should be throwing out the first pitch at the Red Sox game, and that none of us should ever have to pay taxes again or health insurance. Sadly, I have thrown out a first pitch, but not because of him, and I still pay taxes and health insurance, so what good does that do you? Whatever. Another supporter was Rob Gronkowski, and I have this in here. He is one of my favorites, just in life in general, because he is always smiling. As long as he's not injured, he goes and does his job. He also knows how to enjoy life. The older we get and the more focused we are, we tend to forget about enjoying life. That's why we're all here. We're all alive. For me, I had to take this situation and remind myself that that's why we're here in this world. It's to do a good job, to make the right choices, but also to really enjoy yourself. Some of my most favorite people and highly, highly respected were veterans. Gentlemen and women from the Semper Fi and America's Fund, they made the choice right from the beginning to come visit us. They were basically here in Boston on the ground, day 2, with everything. Whether you were able or not to meet with them, they kept coming back. Not only did they help me answer questions, but they also really put my family at ease. When something as life-changing as this happens, your family, you think about the adversity that you're going to have to face now. No one knew if I would go back to work. I didn't know if I was going to go back to work. No one knew if I'd ever be able to live on my own again. I had no idea what to do at this. There's no Amputee for Dummies book out there. So I had to figure out, in a sense, in my mind, I was going to have to do this alone. But that's not true. I have made it to where I am today because of all of the different support. And these veterans who have gotten hurt the same exact way, but fighting for our freedom, they were there and they helped me get to where I am today. And I'm so fortunate that I get to call them best friends. Now, as one of the other survivors found out, they don't have all the answers when becoming an amputee. Because when Heather Abbott, who's from Newport, Rhode Island, became an amputee, and our friend BJ, who was a former Marine, he went to her and he said, "I can answer any question you have." So she looked at him and said, "Will I be able to wear my heels again?" BJ said, "That's the only question I cannot answer." And she does. She wears these heels, 4-inch heels, and she's crazy. But she's also below the knee, which is a whole nother story. So where I'm above knee, it's a little bit more of a challenge. I went through tremendous physical therapy because I figured early on that we had to set goals. I had to set my own goals. Goals can be as large or as small as you want or need in life. And in the beginning, I decided I was going to make small goals. Anytime one of my injuries healed, that was a goal. I also wanted to get home, back to my apartment. I hadn't moved into the back bay in one of those brownstones, but I moved into a second-floor apartment with 18 stairs in that Italian section known as the North End. Parking is not very easy. There's no assigned parking spaces. There's no garages unless you want to park at the public garage. So before April 15, 2013, generally I would have a 7-minute walk to and from my apartment. That was going to have to change. but I knew that I would need to be strong enough to at least walk if I could get a closer proximity parking lot. And then, has anybody ever been into the festivals in the North End, the Saints' feasts? So even when it's not feast season or summertime, there's always tourists there. One of the scientific formulas that I have proven is that a body in motion stays in motion. So when I'm walking with this 10-pound clunker on my right leg and I'm in motion, don't stop short because I'm probably going to take you down. There's no brakes on this thing. So I've had to learn how to really traverse uneven sidewalks and potholes and the tourist who stops because they don't know where they're going. And the last thing that in this neighborhood I've had to deal with is our wonderful winters. Who here loves snow? God bless you all. God bless you all. It was tough before, but now it's even worse. But I do deal with it, and it's one of the positive things in the incredible things that we do have here in New England. But through all of this, these were small goals that I kept setting. Day by day, I knew I was getting better, and I was achieving these goals. I was achieving them so much that I got my first prosthesis. People ask, what does it feel like? To me, it feels like putting a ski boot on my thigh. But I wanted to get back to walking. I wanted to get back to normal. And one of the other things that I surprisingly really wanted to get back to was running. So shortly thereafter, I got my running blade. Now, another thing that I've learned is that you need to learn how to walk before you can run. So those are two things that I've proven. I did practice, and I did accomplish a 5K in 2014, but me and Jeannie too, yes, they all have names, we're kind of in an argument right now, and I'm deciding whether or not I want to put her back on. And they're all female, by the way. So I can stand up here and make these jokes because of all the support that I've had in the past. What I like to do now, and part of the reason why I am here today, is because I do like to share my story. And I do a lot of peer visiting now. So if there's someone who has an issue